Okay, welcome Chem 1 students. This is Mr. Bardwell again. This is the second video on sig figs. In this video we're going to focus on counting the correct number of sig figs. This is a part that people get wrong quite a bit. Now remember, when you're doing addition and subtraction, as you'll learn in the next video, you're not going to use the number of sig figs, you're going to use the number of decimals. When you're using multiplication and division, that's when we're going to use the number of sig figs. So let's go ahead and take a look here at what we have. Basically, this is a method that kind of helps you remember it. Now, there's a second set of rules that we'll go through in a second video that's more of a concrete method. This is kind of a visual method, but I found it's been successful for a lot of kids. So we're going to go ahead and start with this one and see if it works for you. The overall goal in either method is going to be the same. We want this to eventually become a habit for you, where you automatically do it without having to think of any rules or little tricks. So that's where we want you to be eventually. Now whether you get there using this trick or whether you get there using the other set of rules doesn't matter to me. It kind of depends on how your brain works. So whichever one works for you is just fine. Here's how this method works. You look at the number you're considering and you want to decide if the decimal point is present with a P. If it is, you're going to start counting from the Pacific Ocean side of the number. So remember, Atlantic is on this side, Pacific is on this side. If the decimal point is present, we start counting on this side of the number. If the decimal point is absent, we're going to start counting on the Atlantic side of the number. Either way, when you start counting, you basically start counting at the first non-zero number and continue to count until the number is done. Each number counted after the first non-zero is significant. Okay. So let's have a look at this first example here. We have the number 7,000 with no decimal point. The decimal point is absent, so we start counting from the Atlantic. That's this side over here. We'll start counting with this number. It's a 0, so it doesn't count. This one also is 0, doesn't count. 0 doesn't count. Here's our first non-zero, so we have 1 sig fig. So this number has 1 sig fig. Okay, let's try this number over here. Now the decimal point is present, right? So we're going to start counting from the Pacific. That means we're going to start counting this direction. That's a terrible arrow. That's all right. We're going to start counting over here. First number is a 7, which is a non-zero, right? So we're going to go ahead and start counting right away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sig figs. So this number has 5 sig figs. Okay. Let's try this example here. Remember, your teacher has probably mentioned this to you, and I believe I mentioned it in the other video. Using scientific notation is a way of indicating how much precision you have. So the number of decimals and the digits you have here is actually your number of sig figs. Okay? So here we go. Scientific notation. Again, just assume the decimal is going to be present. So we're going to start counting from the Pacific Ocean side. Start over here. Alright, the 9 is a non-zero, so we start counting there. So we have 1. Now these are zeros, but we've already started counting, right? So we continue to count. After you start, you just keep going. So 2, 3. This number has 3 sig figs. Okay. Moving on along to this example. Decimal point is present. Okay. So we start counting from the Pacific again. Here we go. Start counting at the first non-zero. This is a non-zero, so we're going to start counting right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sig figs. Okay. Next example. Again, decimal point is present. We start counting from the Pacific. Here we go. Number 1 here, it's a 0, so we're not counting yet, right? We're just going to keep waiting. 0, not counting yet. Again, a 0, a 0. Finally, our first real number, so we start counting finally. So here's number 1, 1 sig fig, 2, 2 sig figs. So this number has 2 sig figs. Okay, that's the easiest method I've ever seen of anyone counting the number of sig figs. Hopefully it works for you. Remember, you just need to look if the decimal point is present or absent, start counting from the direction indicated, and count every number from there on out after the first non-zero number. Okay. Let's go ahead and give this a try and do a couple of little practice problems. Okay, here we go again. Now we've switched over to a couple of practice problems. Let's go through and see if you can do it. If you want right now, what I would recommend doing is pausing the video while this is up on the screen, going through and trying to solve these yourself, and then starting the video back up again and seeing if we can go through and do them together. So feel free to pause it now if you'd like. Okay, hopefully you tried them on your own on a sheet of paper. Let's see how you did. First thing, we're going to count the number of sig figs in these first couple problems, right? This first one has a decimal point that's present, so I'm going to start counting from this direction. I start counting at the first non-zero. Here we are, here's 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 sig figs. 4 sig figs on number 1. Number 2, decimal point is present. I start counting from the Pacific side. I have a non-zero to start us off, so I'm going to go ahead and start counting right from the word go. 1, 2, 3 sig figs. Again, none of this matters, right? The number of decimals and digits actually written here is your number of sig figs in scientific notation. Let's try C down here. All right, again, decimal point is present. I start counting from the Pacific. Here we go. That's a 0. Not counting yet. Nope. 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 Here we go. Start counting. 1, 2. I have 2 sig figs. Let's try this one over here. Again, decimal point is present. Here we go. Don't need to start counting until right here. 1, 2, 3 sig figs. 3 sig figs there. E down here. All right, we have a decimal point that is present. We're going to start counting again from the Pacific side. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sig figs there. All right, let's do this one down here. Decimal point. Oh, this is the first one that's missing it, right? Our decimal point is now absent. So we're going to start from the Atlantic side. All right, that's a 0. Doesn't count. That is a real number, so we start counting there. So 1, 2, 2 sig figs. All right, let's try this next little section here, rounding. All right, so again, let's go through and try them. I need to round 5.432 to 2 significant figures. Let's see what it looks like. All right, 5.4, that gives me 2 sig figs, right? I'm going to look at the decimal right after. The 3, that's not going to need to round the 4 up. It's going to round down, so 5.4 grams is my final answer, rounded to 2 sig figs. Let's take a look at B. All right, B, 2 sig figs. I'm going to need to round, right? I'm going to look 1 decimal past what I'm rounding to. It's a 0, so it's not going to round up, so my final answer is going to be 9.0 times 10 to the 6th calories. That's 2 sig figs. Let's take a look at C. Well, C's already done, right? It's already got 2 sig figs. Well, let's go ahead and write it in here. All right, 0.00045 cubic decimeters. By the way, a cubic decimeter is equal to a liter. All right, let's take a look at D down here. So we have 2 sig figs here. Up in the version up here, I have 3. So again, we need to look at it. I'm going to be 3 and a 0. The 4 will not make it round up. So 0.0030 millimeters. All right, there's 2 sig figs. Now, remember, these 2 over here are not going to count. Those 2 are placeholders. Only these are significant to the precision of your measurement. Let's take a look at E. All right, we need 2 sig figs here. Now, stop and try to do this one on your own. Pause the video if you need to. Do it on a separate sheet of paper. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, hopefully you tried this on your own. Hopefully you did not get 15 for an answer. Remember, it's real easy to make mistakes on these and have people round to things that make no sense at all. 145 is never going to round to 15. That's just not going to happen. It doesn't make sense. Remember, you're allowed to leave zeros. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? Those zeros just need to be left as placeholders. So I need to make a conscious choice whether I write my decimal point or not. Okay? Let's see what that looks like. Our biggest digit is the one we're going to keep first. So 100. Okay? The 4, right here, I'm going to look at the next decimal past. The 5 is going to make that 4 round up 105. 150, that's a terrible 5. 150 Kelvin. Okay, take a look. Is this 2 sig figs? Decimal point is absent. I count from the Atlantic. 1, 2 sig figs. This 0 right here is simply a placeholder. Okay, so that 150 actually makes sense. All right, let's do this one down here. 340 seconds. All right. Oh, that one's already done, right? It's already written to 2 sig figs, so there we go. 340 seconds. Now again, if I was to put my decimal point here, it would indicate that I have a precision to the ones place. I would have 3 sig figs if the decimal point was here. I'm intentionally making a decision not to put the decimal point, because if I did, it would change the precision and indicate more precision than I truly have. So it's being left out, leaving me with only 2 sig figs in our final answer. Hopefully this helped clear it up for you. If not, I'd recommend that you go ahead and check out the part 2 video B and take a look at that version. It's going to have some rules laid out in a more concrete way. If your brain kind of prefers to have a set of rules, you might want to try those. Either way, remember, the point is to try this stuff until it becomes natural for you and it's not a struggle anymore. It just happens automatically. So give it a practice, try those worksheets, and we'll talk about it in class tomorrow and see how you did. I'll talk to you later. Bye.